So I'm Joanne. I'm a visual storyteller or a photographer. I don't really like the term photography because I feel that kind of now photography is moving in so many different ways, and for me it's more about visual storytelling, so it's more driven by narrative and about kind of playing with the narrative. I've graduated kind of 2 years ago, so I've been working as a freelance photographer for 2 years, and I graduated from LCC in London. I moved to Amsterdam to work at a photo fair for about 3 months and then moved back to Yorkshire. So I work a lot at the top of Scotland, and I work a lot around the UK on commissions for the BBC, for Vice, and I've been working freelance for about 2 years. I think what first attracted me to photography was I was really interested in literature, so from a young age kind of like obsessed with books and storytelling. And then the first kind of interaction I had with cameras was through disposable cameras, so I would kind of get disposable cameras and kind of mix the two up, so it'd kind of be disposable camera and then and I'd try and tell stories from the books I was reading, and it'd just be really quick in a day, and so I didn't think of it as anything or as a project, but that's how I first got into photography. So from doing that, I kind of never really thought that it was possible that that would be a job or a career. And it was only when I kind of got to 16 that I thought seriously about kind of studying something. So I studied fine art first at the CAS in London, and through that it's kind of a different path, because usually you would study photography and then maybe go, but I first studied fine art and actually realised what photography you could do with, or kind of heard about all these artists that I didn't know existed and what they were doing with it. And I think I was introduced to Joanne, and I just thought, oh, this is amazing that you can do all this different stuff and that you can combine text and that you can tell stories in different ways. And then I saw the photographer Alex Sof and realised how his work was really driven, and how you can kind of have these spaces where the audience can tell stories themselves. And so I became really interested in that, and then kind of it went from there really. I would say it's kind of a mixture of, I'd say I'm really inspired by Northern realism, and whether that's I always think of the North in two different ways, like the North of England or the North of Scotland as well. So kind of the North, and I'm inspired by a lot of literature, so I think there's a lot of themes kind of going on, like weaving through, and a lot of kind of, I guess, work in terms, so whether it's farming or fishing, so really interested in that kind of like rooted and smaller communities. And I realised as well from studying in London, I went all this way to get away from like a rural place, and as soon as I was studying in London, realised that all my work was actually about rural communities and kind of more isolated places, so isolation in rural communities as well, I would say. I think responses, it's like when someone understands completely, like so you just show a bit of a new project, and I've been doing a new project about mental health and I haven't put it up on my website yet, or I haven't shown it that much, but I kind of wanted to show people without telling them too much what it was about, so that kind of like just critiquing with peers and like with strangers, and like I set up this group called Lens Think, and I've been kind of showing some people who are part of that, and so just like concentrate on like peer reviews. And like I showed a friend that, and they really understood what it was about without me explaining, so I think that was a really great response, and kind of that's brilliant. And then I guess when people email you out of the blue who've never met you and compliment your work or seem to understand it or write something, I would say that was probably, it's just really like, I don't know, it's really nice that someone connects to work. And sometimes it's nice when someone tells you a completely different story, or that they've asked if that's someone's son or something, that they like in the photo with one of the fishing photos, and then they'll tell you a story from their life, and it's kind of this really interesting, finding out about other people through your photography is really interesting. So the workshop I'm doing for making it is all about visual narratives and storytelling, and I really wanted to do it because I think there's so many photography's this exciting medium, and you can really play with it, and it's really like you can just pull it apart, and you can kind of have all these different messages and stories and themes. And I think especially kind of in the current society we live in, you have like these documentaries that are being made, like Adam Curtis' Bit of Late, where it talks about kind of so much like propaganda, and I think people are starting to think of photography differently, and especially the younger generation are using it in a different way. So I really wanted to do this workshop on visual storytelling, but really challenge about how people can use photography, whether that's with an iPhone or whether with a digital camera, and then incorporate in some written text as well. So it'll be sequencing the images. So we'll do some kind of like photo workshops to start with, and then we'll kind of loosely base it on an idea, and that'll be very much up to the participants. So it could be a local myth or legend, or it can be something really personal, or it can be something that's kind of more like mental health related, that myths in that respect, or it can be political myths, and you can kind of play with it in that way, and from that make a kind of sequence of images in a group, and then working in that group that will end up kind of, it'll almost be like a little mini photo book sequence that they can tell a story with. I think something that I've really wanted to work on for a while, and I've kind of started working on it, but it's a kind of difficult one at the same time. It's about island life and different island communities. So from working in Orkney a lot, I've been doing some work up there and kind of was interested in, I lived there for 3 months, so got really interested in island communities. So next year I'm going to Shetland to do an artist residency, and I've just been to Tasmania. So kind of being around some islands and kind of seeing the different connections, and kind of making that into a project. But it's a difficult one because you'd have to travel to quite a few different places, and you want to spend quite a large amount of time with different communities to get to know them. So it's a project that would probably take years and years to complete, but that's kind of something that I'm really interested in doing. And then other than that, just kind of working with everyday people is just always, it sounds like really corny, but a kind of dream project, because you find out so much about, I think, the current situation, whether it's politically or you kind of, or regionally even, you find out so many issues from working with people, and local stories have such a big impact to me. So every time I get to work with a local community or with like fishing or farming, it's always really interesting for me. There's quite a few people. They're mainly like writers though. So Robert McFarlane is a huge influence. The way he kind of talks about the landscape I find really interesting. And Nan Shepherd is also a massive hero. The way she writes, I think they made me see the landscape differently, and through that, stories that we tell about the landscape and the people within the landscape. So I would say mainly writers, but at the same time, there's some really brilliant photographers kind of making really interesting work. And it's hard, my heroes, I always say like Alex Surf, because he was probably who I connected with first in photography, and Ron Jude as well. And I think there's like a bit of a void that they keep in their work that keeps the audience can kind of bring in their own, it's this ambiguity then, and the audience can kind of piece together a story in their own way, and they're not telling someone what to think, which is what I really admire about their work. I think it's a really good chance to try a different medium, and it's a really good chance to also meet like-minded people, and I think that's one of the things in the arts that's sometimes missing, especially say if people have left university or maybe they've never been to university, they don't have that peer connection. And I think that's really strong for like, if you are making new work or you're thinking about making work, is just to find people to collaborate and connect with. So if you come to something like this, you're instantly kind of having that opportunity to connect with people, and they're going to be from your area, so you've already kind of got that chance to form collectives or to go on and kind of think of something new. And I think a lot of the people that come are regulars, so that they can kind of like, you can kind of learn from them about different workshops as well, and you can try something a bit new, and it's somewhere where you can take risks and there's going to be no consequences, so you can just try whatever you like in the workshop and kind of see if you like it, see if it fits, and if not, there's no big consequence to that.